How do you typically bring on new clients? How do you meet new clients? How do new clients find you?
You know what? Networking is a very important aspect of bringing on new clients. You can't leave to chance that people will discover you. Sometimes you need to go out and get discovered by people. Network and just meet like-minded fellow entrepreneurs who might have completely different businesses, but the challenge is the same across industries. Okay. So that gives me a great backbone of support.
I guess you founded NH1 Design Agency. How long ago did you found it? And really, what's the story behind NH1?
You know, to be very honest, I never had a dream of starting my own agency. It was by luck. I studied in London, and post that I interned in London with various companies like Johnson Banks, William Rahm. There was a company which specialized in annual reports those days called NH1 Design. And after which I joined a company in India called NH1 Design, which was later acquired by Brand Union. I got married, moved to South Africa, moved back to India, did a bit of back and forth between cities because my husband had a job. And then finally we landed up in Delhi. And when I moved to Delhi, I didn't know anybody in Delhi, and I just thought, let me just start something. I got one or two freelance projects. I started working on them. And then I just realized I didn't want to work alone. And I hired a first designer who I could never afford to hire. And she was a fashion designer, and she wanted to learn graphic design. So she came on board as an intern, and that's how I started NH1 Design in one of my rooms in my apartment. And NH1 Design was born there. I hired my fifth person at home, and that's when I realized there was no separation between private life and professional life anymore. And that's when I took up and also rented an office space and moved out. It's been a very organic process, and I would call it the lady luck. Our first design project which we ever did at NH1 Design was a healthcare project, and that won a couple of national awards. And because of which people started looking up to us, and we started developing a healthcare portfolio. So that's how NH1 Design was born.
And what is it? I guess what are the challenges of being a female-led design team?
I never see myself as a female-led design team. I think it's about a designer. It's not about the gender here at all. So it's about the designer, and I don't see the demarcation between gender. You both are designers. The man or the woman, they both are designers, and they go out and show the work. I think it's the work that matters, not the gender.
Culturally, in India, in the US, we're having there's a lot of discussion around female empowerment and bringing more females into leadership, especially in design, because here in the US, it's always been like a boys club is what they call it. It's always been men. It's always been, white men. And, coming in as an immigrant myself, I saw some challenges coming up. So I was just wondering if in India there were those.
I would probably reverse the roles in India. I think it's the women power in India. So both my bosses were women, and Sujata Keshwan actually ran one of the biggest design studios in India way back, which she sold to Brand Union. I think it is the other way around here. I think women are there are far more women graphic designers than men.
Wow. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Show, yeah.
And on your website, you state that NH1 marries science, design, and logic. So I get the design part, but what is the science and the logic part?
I think science and the logic in the design process is more the research, the consumer insight, and also any project typically has a very robust process to it, right? So you do a couple of meetings with the client. You understand what the product is, what the business strategy is, who they are talking to, right? What will appeal to the target audience. That entire process is the science of it. So that's what we call the science and logic part. So once we understand that is when we start, after we write a customized briefing document for the client. And it's actually a very robust briefing document which they fill in. And then we have a debriefing session with the client just to understand whether we have articulated all the points correctly on the briefing document. And at this point, we would have also done a competition research and analysis. And what are the competition saying and how are the products talking, etc. And where does the product market fit into the entire marketplace? And then is when we start marrying the design and the intuition and the magic part of it.
All right, let's take a quick second to talk about idpdirect.com. Go right to that website, download the design guides, the sustainability guides, the recyclable icon guide, which basically lists out all the different icons. It gives them to you in vectors. You can drop them right into your artwork right now, today, and go right into production. All right, back to the pod. As I looked through your website, you talked about medical. There's a lot of medical clients, but then you also have alcohol, and you start broadening into real estate. So at what point did NH1 take a departure from medical?
What I love about our business is that we get a chance to understand about other businesses. And once we got deep into healthcare, what I realized that, clients starts to bucket you. If you do one great healthcare project, here comes the second healthcare project. Yeah. Then comes the third healthcare project. But I think in the third year of NH1 Design, I actually told my team, I really want to do FMCG. I love drinking. I really want to design alcohol label. And at my first alcohol label actually came a part of me being an entrepreneur. So I had joined an entrepreneurs club, and I met a guy who was planning to launch a gin label. And with that gin label, I said, let me do it. And he gave me a chance to work on it. And it was very interesting because if you keep working on a particular vertical and you go very deep in it, you kind of put in extra effort to understand another vertical altogether. So hence we started working on alcohol, loved the entire experience of it. When you see a finished product, when you see completely you can put various intricate print effects on it, and you can have a beautiful bottle come to life. I mean, that's what gave us real pleasure. So we always say from birth, we've done hospitals, we've done alcohol, we've done food. We can actually take the person through the entire journey of
their life.
I'm yet to design the tomb now. That's
next. That's next. So is the project that you're talking about, is that Gin Gigi?
Yeah, that's Gin Gigi. Yeah.
Yeah, and that label is amazing.
Yeah, that was designed by a colleague of ours called Arvind Narayan, and he takes really a lot of pride in it. I think it's really his baby, and how much love he put into the entire design.
Yeah, and as I pull up the Gin Gigi label on my screen, the science and the design and the logic, this one really embodies that. And the reason that I feel that it embodies it is when I first look at the label, the typography is amazing. The color selection, which is, gold and copper and white. You've got a really plush paper, so you're getting a really deep deboss happening. And that's all great and good. But then as I learn more about the product, the reason for the illustrations start to tell a different story. And I love the idea of every element in this design telling a story about the product. So how does that come about? Is that part of the brief? Do you see that before you even get started, where you want to go, or how does that evolve?
So I believe, as I said, it was actually as a part of more like a design entrepreneur, how this project actually landed in our sheet. So when I met the client, this particular label was actually designed for the export market, US, Chicago to begin with, and then it's now in Sweden and a few other countries as well. And we were very clear, we were portraying Indian gin on a global stage. So we wanted to clearly stay away from the stereotypes associated with it, right? Stereotypes as in making it like taking inspiration from the truck traffic or any of the typical traffic system which is associated in India. We wanted to keep it very international, yet rooted to India. And because the entire product story, again, if you go deep into the brief, was rooted with the botanical story of the label. The entire ingredients was from the juniper berries, was sourced from the Himalayas. When we got into the ingredient story, we thought it could be a very culturally rich story. And that would also give the bartenders another parallel story to play with when they are at the bar making a cocktail using the Gin Gigi. So, it's not about just the bottles. You have to also understand how this entire story come alive at the bar as well. So if you have little herbs from India kept in the bar, top with the Indian Gin Gigi bottle as a POS, I think what's going to really happen is that you start indulging in the brand a lot more. The craft of gin would really come alive. Hence, taking inspiration from that, we did these ornamental Indian botanicals, and we've crafted the entire label based on that. The label was also not printed in India. It was actually printed in Australia The clients knew of a great vendor in Australia. He got them printed in Australia. And we did more than 50 color variations of it. Wow. Before we sealed on 3 colors for the brand.
And what about that's amazing. And what about the bottle shape and design?
So that was a bit of a thing. So bottle shape and design. In fact, we are working with the client right now to do there's an agency called Studio ABD who's trying to crack it, to do a customized structure for the bottle. We were working on extremely tight budgets. It was one of the client's first venture into alcohol. He was mostly like a distributor, And so we worked with whatever was available in the market because you had to have a minimum MOQs to able to do a customized bottle. So this is one of the biggest challenges which I see with especially newer brands. Getting a customized bottle becomes a bottleneck because of the sheer price attached to getting a customized bottle done. So I think this is the 4th year of GinGG. I think now they're getting a customized bottle. You're planning a customized bottle.
What about the lid on here is a copper. It looks to be like a copper, and it matches the foil color, which then as I read more in there, there's the copper, the copper equipment that's used for gin production. Again, it's like every little piece tells a bigger story of the brand. And
yeah, so we kind of reverse engineered a lot of things. We had a problem. We were stuck with the bottle. So because we stuck with the entire copper distilled and the copper color of the label, etc. So we somehow convinced the clients to kind of do the copper cap for it, and he agreed to it, and then we went ahead with it.
Yeah, and you're right. There's a lot of brands where if you're in alcohol, the challenge is the bottle. Right. So it's like finding a stock bottle that is close to where you want to be and then adorning it with beautiful labels and maybe a secondary label over the lid. It's a challenge I think a lot of people face. And a lot of times entrepreneurs don't realize they're going to face that challenge. Right. They see all the beautiful bottles on the shelf and they say, I want a beautiful bottle too. Not that this isn't a beautiful bottle, but it's like, I want a custom bottle. And then you're hit with the realization that customization is very expensive and has really high MOQs. So GinGG, you met at an entrepreneurial networking group. Did it have that name already, or did you come up with the name?
No, the name was already there. Was already there. In fact, they had also tried a couple of labels in the past, which we kind of said a no to, and then we convinced the clients to drop everything and restart from scratch again.
Wow. And so you met them at an entrepreneurial networking group. Besides that particular experience, how do you typically bring on new clients? How do you meet new clients? How do new clients find you?
Networking is a very important aspect of bringing on new clients. And secondly, I think our business is primarily a word of mouth story than anything else. So we do whatever work we do, typically we get referred to by our clients. So that's one way you find new clients. Only in the year 2020, we started doing something called an active new business development. And we put a function or a role in our organization when pandemic hit. Then we started actually going to your stories in the VC circles of the world, figuring out which clients have got a Series A, Series B funded, and then writing to them to showcase our work. Because not everybody you can't leave to chance that people will discover you. Sometimes you need to go out and get discovered by people. And to a surprise, we did convert 3 new businesses last year through our process, a new business process. So it was a great learning, very exciting. There's a lot of work which goes into new business development. And I feel it's a role by itself. And being a small studio, we hired somebody for that role altogether, because we never had that person on board. So I think 2020 was that one change which we did, was to how to get new clients. Otherwise, there's a group called Entrepreneur Organizations, which my husband is a part of, and I'm a spousal member. I think that also gives us a great networking platform to network and just meet like-minded fellow entrepreneurs who might have completely different businesses, but the challenge is the same across industries. Okay. So that gives me a great backbone of support. And
like you said, you've spent time in healthcare, you've spent time in drinks, FMCG. You take all these little experiences from each one of those, and when an entrepreneur knocks on the door and says, "I have X product, you've never seen anything like this," as a designer, you're kind of like, "I've seen something like this. I've seen these challenges somewhere else. I can apply my learnings from Comet or Jersey to your solution."
Yeah. For example, I give you a question. What can a hospitality industry learn from healthcare? and vice versa. Healthcare industry has a lot to learn from hospitality industry. I think if you really go deep into various verticals, I think you can really start switching the learnings from one another and come up with completely unique insights for the brand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, especially healthcare, right? When you walk in, you want to be greeted, you want to feel safe, you want to be accommodated, which is all the things that happen when you go into a hotel, right? It's all these little details. And when we talk about your process and wanting to move away from healthcare into FMCG, we enjoy our drinks, we like the alcohol bottles, we love the labels, but then you have something completely different, which was you revamped Jersey, which is they've got chocolates, they've got milk, they've got a variety of different products. What's that process like? You've got some amazing packs there as well, like from a structural standpoint. There's some really interesting boxes for some of the milks. What does that process look like? Do you have structural designers on your team? How do you take on this client and how do you walk through them?
So number one, we don't have structural designers on a team. If we are looking for structural designers, then we typically partner with a secondary design agency. Jersey, all the structures which you see on our website currently was already being used by the client. In fact, that was one of the challenges we had to work with. For example, I still don't like the structure of the milkshake, not the milkshakes, but the flavored milk. It was a really thin looking bottle. It almost feels like I get very little milk when I'm drinking that bottle. When I see that bottle. But we had to just work around that. In terms of the process, it was a 25-year-old brand, which we started to revamp. It was called Creamline Jersey. It was acquired by an iconic Indian business conglomerate. And that's when the business conglomerate invited us to not look at one-off packaging for everything, but to design a packaging system for them, which could live with the range of products which Jersey has to offer. And tomorrow, if they're launching a new variant or a new category, then the design system is already set and they can easily adapt and move forward. So when we deep dived into the project, we saw that the cow patches was something consumer really related Jersey with. And that's why if you see the entire design language has taken inspiration from the cow patches, because we personally felt the cow patches are superbly modern and they could be easily extended with different cultural elements, and the entire portfolio could be actually created through that. And we exactly did that. For the ice creams, we introduced another layer of textures into it. For the thick shakes, we actually made it look a lot more modern because a younger audience would be drinking it. So depending on the audiences and the appeal which we wanted to give to the audiences, to our target market, we customize each category, each variant accordingly while bringing a part of the unified portfolio.
Okay, and I'm looking at the milk packs where it's a bag of milk. So that is very different for me. I've never seen milk in a bag, and
okay,
it makes a lot of sense when you think of, at least for here in the US, when you think of it. Here we have all these containers. We have a lot of Tetra Paks. A lot of PET containers for milks, but this is just a flexible film pack and you just tear it and drink it and enjoy it. So like that makes a lot of sense. From a branding standpoint, looking at the old pack design, they still had the cow patches, but it wasn't as modern and prominent as what you've developed. Just going back to the original conversation that we had of you're designing packaging for a wide range of consumers, from very poor and uneducated to very capable, financially stable individual. How does that range of consumer affect the design choices that you're making on a pack like Jersey?
So whenever you think of a mass market consumer product, you have to understand that the fabric of a society is such that there are different cultures, there are different income groups you're talking to. For example, a milk pack. Though you don't tear it and drink it immediately, there's a traditional Indian way to boil milk before you do anything, drink it. So if you're talking to a varied range of audience, you have to make sure your category codes are such which people understand, right? So it's you talk because your audiences are so varied, especially when you're doing a very mass market consumer product like milk or sugar or any of that. You have to ensure you're following the category codes. You have to stay within that while you're breaking a little bit of boundaries. I'm not saying you can't go completely. You can't have a very out of the box design which could stand on the shelf. Of course, you can do that. There are many brands who've done that. You can't be very, very quirky sometimes when you're designing a mass market FMCG product.
Okay. And then I also see on your site, it's showing this product being delivered to a Jersey parlor, right? Where it's a different delivery system than what we're used to in the US. So how does the supply chain play into your design choices as well? Like, are you thinking of how this product is being delivered, how it's being displayed? Obviously you are, but how is that different?
No, so when we started working with Jersey, we actually went to Hyderabad. We woke up at 4 a.m. to see how does milk gets distributed to all the little vendors, the little corner shops, and there's these tea stalls where milk gets distributed to. And you would the typical vision is you'll see crates of blue color crates. You'll probably see it on our website lined up, and the milk packs in it. And people would probably come at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. to go and buy those milk packs. And they'll buy 1 or 2 milk packs and they'll go back. So you will have to keep in mind that entire supply chain, how it works, how the packs are kept, at what direction they are kept when you're designing the branding. So, you kind of ensure that people can still see it. And even the crates are actually branded.
Sure.
So whatever identity you take, even the crates are interestingly branded. And then you have to also think of wall graphics, which would be later be hand painted. And your packs could also get reproduced while they are being hand painted. Because that's what the reality is. Because a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities would hand paint your pack on the wall just to say that these milk packs are available here.
So if your design is really complicated, then you may have issues with the painting, with the hand painting and the display.
Yes, you would. Yeah.
Yeah. What I love about having this podcast is the ability to talk to people from all over the world and understand as a designer that there are, the challenges that I go through in a day with a client, whether it's sizing or materials or design, really range. And as we speak to more people and we start learning about other designers and cultures and different regions of the planet, it's like, wow, there's broader challenges. And it makes, I think somebody that's listening think about design a little differently and helps to improve their ability to design. Right? As we start listening to different challenges, I think it makes a big difference. Now you studied in London, and then you went to India, and then you went to South Africa. Were you designing in South Africa?
I actually did a short stint in South Africa. It was more like an extended honeymoon, I would say. So it was a short stint in South Africa. I worked with a company called HKLM Design, rebranding a Nigerian bank for about 3 months, and then I was back in India.
What was the environment for designing in South Africa compared to India?
To be very honest, I really didn't get a chance to work on very local projects in South Africa. And I worked in a very international bank with very international policies and processes. So it didn't feel I was very close to the culture of South Africa at that point to be working for that. So it was very international and I would say global in its views. And it was just one project. So I would not be the right one to say what South Africa was.
So Neha, as you're designing the packaging for all these different brands and you're doing the branding as well, how do you recognize that you're on the right path and that you're achieving success with your design?
So on the right path, I would say at first it kind of needs to feel right for the brand, for the TG, for the price point, for the geography, for the time you end up launching this. Secondly, we do get it validated by our inner circle. And then thirdly, it is always the research which comes back and tells you what works, what worked and what didn't work. And sometimes when you don't do the research, I think it is the sales number. When we did packaging for a sugar brand, we were told by the marketing guide that the sales of the sugar brand has gone up 3x after our redesign process. Now that for me is the biggest validation. I think clients buy into design because they need to see the return on investment on design in terms of sales. So I think that is the biggest validation which we feel is we know we're in the right path. The difference goes into the market. Of course, it needs to feel right for the TG, for the price point, for the geography, for everything. Because even with geographies, your design aesthetics change, right? If you're talking to particularly a brand which talks only in North India to versus South India, I think it's so different from North to South that your design aesthetics need to change with basis on that.
Have you ever wondered, how do I reduce my carbon footprint? Should I focus on recycled content or reducing weight first? Which design strategies are the most effective for my products? Triac offers multiple solutions for lifecycle assessment, goals management, reporting, EPR fees, and more. Visit triac.com to connect with our team and register for a free 10-day trial of Eco Impact Compass to get started today.
That's great. I appreciate that. And then you're also on the Pentawards jury this year, which I am too. So I'm really excited to be on there with you. When you're looking at the packaging submissions, do you feel that you're going to have a gut reaction to whether something is good or something is bad, or how do you judge? How do you critique packaging?
First and foremost, yes, I will have a gut reaction. But then I will have to let my gut reaction subdue and take a very strategic approach to understand what was the brief, what was the client, what areas were they talking to, they're targeting, what are the geographies they're going to be presenting, and how is the market at that place. And then kind of take a call in terms of whether the brief was answered, whether the packaging had an appeal, what was the product innovation done there? Because I think some of the packaging awards you need to see what was the idea behind the product packaging. I think that's another very big, a good idea, beautifully crafted, is something which we all look for.
Absolutely, perfect answer. And I'm stealing your answer because that's how I'm going to now approach my judging. As a judge, you don't want to base everything on your gut reaction, but as consumers, it's hard not to have that gut reaction. So then, taking the time to go through the brief, making sure that they've answered it, absolutely something that we have to do. To really appreciate that. As we wrap up here, Neha, what is the perfect client for NH1 Design? Who should be reaching out to you?
I really feel I don't like the term perfect. There is no perfect client and there's no perfect relationship. I think everything needs to be worked on. Where a great client is actually not one person, but a team of people within that organization or a brand who have a common vision and has an ambition to show scale. One thing I love to work for is brands which can scale very well. And because when you can achieve scale, that's when you see the actual impact of design per se. And one which we can give a very constructive feedback. We have one client, we work with a beer brand, the B9 beverages, Beta 91. And we love working with that client because he constantly pushes our design. These are the times when we go back and say, why is he doing this? But when we go and actually start reworking on the designs, we actually are wowed ourselves. So we are working with clients who constantly push our design thinking and actually make us feel uncomfortable to a certain extent. So that's really great because that's where I think magic happens, right? When you and the client are actually working together and constantly pushing each other to perfect the brief and perfect the product further. And of course, lastly is one who can get things executed to the final details. Because great idea, beautifully crafted, without execution is
nothing. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Neha. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. I will have links in the show notes to NH1 Design, to your website, to your LinkedIn profile. So again, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. And I look forward to judging with you on Pentawards.
One thing I wanted to add, and
yes,
because you've given me this question in the morning, what was the biggest challenge to be a founder and a creative director of an agency? I think it's really interesting because when you think of a role as a designer, it's more like an entrepreneur. You have the both pros and cons attached to it. Just to give you a little example, we got a client inquiry to design a sanitary pad packaging. And of course, that inquiry didn't go anywhere. And because that inquiry didn't go anywhere, we converted the entire brief into a self-initiated project. And we even won a Pentawards for it, but it was very interesting because, in India, a lot of women don't talk about periods. And I thought period shame is something which we should tackle on the packaging and not do a film which people see and forget about it. Because every day every time I have my periods, I interact with the sanitary pad pack. So I wanted to actually do a self-initiated project. So we did a small limited edition design of the sanitary pad packaging, got one of the biggest brands on board to sell it online. And I think being a designer who's an entrepreneur, you have the power to actually take decisions and turn some projects into brand. So I think that's what it's fabulous about being a designer who's an entrepreneur.
As I go through the project on your website, I love that you've got a fabric pouch to hold the products, to hold the pads. The information, the copy has a little bit of humor, in it. It says "Don't hide it." Period. Like literally spells out period. You've got another one that says it's just blood. Period. It's making it. You're trying to. I think you're answering the question of the shame that's involved in this, and that there shouldn't be any. So having this conversation, making it more accessible. You also mentioned that you had a large brand support you in launching this product. How did you reach out to this brand to say, I've got this idea, we want to launch this?
I actually convinced the client who didn't sign up with me to send me 1,000 sanitary pads to my office. And once we had that, we just did a small prototype in office. I had the pads in my hand. I thought it was looking fabulous. I didn't know who to talk. And then I went to a PR agent and I spoke with her. I said, this is the product. Can you help us? And of course, I had no budgets because it was my own self-initiated thing. And I said, everything I sell, I'll give it to a charity and for a cause for women's menstrual hygiene. And that's when she got Nika on board. But what my real dream for this project is to actually get scale into this project. Because till it doesn't get translated into various languages and circulates across the globe, I don't think it's going to happen. Until brands like Unilever and P&G actually do not buy into these ideas, it just lives in a designer's website as a beautiful project and you get awarded for it and it does nothing else. So I think that's one thing which I feel a lot of projects need to see scale to see impact.
Absolutely. So I think, we do have listeners from Unilever. So if you're listening at Unilever and you want to reach out to Neha, please do, because this is a great project to take on and distribute globally. Absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. We have to stick together. This is a great project. We have to get it on the market, on the shelf. And even if it's just for the copywriting, because the copywriting is great. I'm probably PMSing, period. It's just that moment of just injecting humor and conversation to a moment that, I would assume isn't broadly talked about.
Thank you.
So Neha, once again, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on. If anybody's interested, you can take a look at her website at NH1Design.com. I'll have all the links in the show notes, and you can reach out to Neha and try to get on her schedule, because she's got a lot of really cool projects happening, and their growing team is going to do some amazing work.